to trust that thanks to the magic of the internet, that we are actually live and functional. We don't have John here to prove it, so we may not be. He may still be connected to the chat. We just did a session, so we are here with Jim Powers. Two things: one of the best role players in this group, arguably. Nana's always right. Throwing the dude off the shoulder into the vines. We'll get to that in a second. But also one of the most incredible Jim Powers. That's the name of a conqueror right there. Welcome, man. How are you? Tell me something good about your situation other than quarantine and all that shit. What are you doing?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I just got handed a really interesting project at work where we're working with the CDC a little bit to help them try to count active cases and who's getting cured and try to get the numbers for real instead of these like massive extrapolations that all the numbers are based on.
Holy shit. So what, that's badass. So are you writing, you're coordinating all that stuff? And if so, thank you. Nice.
Yeah.
Are you wearing a mask when you're coordinating that? Because I don't know, that's kind of close to the situation.
No, thankfully my house is hermetically sealed and it looks like E.T.
Excellent. Good deal. Well, it's either E.T. or Dexter, depending, right? It's you got a lot of plastic as a point. Very good. So we are here for Jim / Bartleby's mid campaign confessional. And this was inspired, for those of you who are old, by like The Real World. Do they still have The Real World on MTV? Is that a thing? I don't know either.
I haven't had cable in 15 years.
Yeah, don't get cable. It's bad. But so the idea is on these reality shows, they'll take one person and pull them aside. And then they clearly ask them questions with a camera that's like right here in their schnoz. We're not gonna do that. But that's where the honesty comes out. So we're gonna take Jim down that path right now. So Bartleby, tell me just in a quick synopsis, where did Bartleby start out? Like what brought him here?
So, I mean, Bartleby started out through the blessing of the dice, right? Like, it was just, let's roll everything and see where we end up.
And you're not the least bit pissed about that. I agree.
No, yep. So he started off, I guess, as just a guy who could pick things up and move them. And I kind of had to start with that and work forward from there. So, yeah, I mean, that's humble beginnings, I guess.
What I love about that, though, man, is that sort of stoic... That sort of seasoned kind of leather neck kind of situation that you brought. Like he's arms crossed a lot, kind of staring people down. He's seen some stuff coming and going on the docks. He's seen fights and he's seen murders and all kinds of stuff. What's his thought on where he is right now? Like what if you could kind of sum up what he's feeling and what would it be like?
So I think that he has a pretty good understanding that his doom is about to come. Like he knows that he's not making it out of this mission alive, more than likely. He's a realist. So, you take somebody who's the worst things that he's seen has been like fist fights and people cutting each other's throats over cargo. And you replace that with like monster mushrooms that try to eat you and vines that chase you through the woods. And he's pretty much thinking, well, that's it. But he's taken a stand and he's become a guard now. And that's his first step towards, actually standing still and saying, no, like, I'm not going to take this lion down.
I love that. So let's take a step back, right? So as we began, you're guarding a caravan. It's not your usual gig. You're usually on the docks, but Unter needed you and the coin's there. And then you had that moment. It's probably one of my favorite moments in any campaign I've played so far. So thank you for that. Is that moment where Grimwald is struggling to save one of the other caravan men, right? One of the other wagon men. And you had to make a decision. So walk me through that. Like what in your head, like the cinematics, what was that like for you?
So, I mean, for Bartleby, he was watching his buddy struggle, trying to pull this person out with the vines growing after them. And it became like just a pragmatic decision of, if we sacrifice this guy, we might all live, except for that guy.
And that's so good.
If we don't, we might all die.
Yeah, and it's like you're like you just pick that dude up like a crate and just like fling into the so good. And that's when I knew. I got to be honest. I'm like I wasn't so sure about the live stream and the whole Myth Brigade thing, but I was like, oh yeah, we got this. This is good. This is some good shit. So how has his outlook on things changed? So you think about that, and that was probably the first moment, the whole dome thing. Now in a world where the Warhammer fantasy world, which I love so much, the grid of it is it's not good. I mean, there are beastmen, there are mutants and stuff, but typically you don't have big magic domes popping up, and chaos is not spewing out and pus everywhere. I was telling John last session, I have not said the word pus this many times, I don't think, in 20 years. Is that? But like, how has Bartleby changed? Like, walk me through that journey, and like, where's his head? Is he just mad and grizzled? Like, is he resigned to death like Oswald? Like, what's his thing?
No, I mean, like, Bartleby is, he kind of started off with just like a job's a job sort of mentality to it. You know, he was hired to do this job, to guard this caravan, even though he has no business guarding a caravan. He's still going to do his job to the best of his ability. He has that like professional integrity, and now he's sort of seen that the job is changing, and despite the fact that Unter's definitely not going to pay more for the hazard, like Bartleby still needs to like get himself ready for what's to come.
Yeah,
and that's sort of where he's been headed in a little bit, and he's a little reserved. Like, he'd rather sit back and watch and let other people, debate out the strategy, and instead be more of like a tactical person and just get it done.
Yeah.
But he's starting to try to influence that as well a little more. We've seen that with, some of his recommendations to some of the other party members for, wouldn't it make sense to do this? But I try to play him with a very focused, like very pragmatic and simple style of how he thinks.
What I love about the way he comes across, Jim, is so like my grandfather was that way. Is he would stand back, right? He would watch you say, take out the chainsaw from the shed and put gas in the chainsaw and crank up the chainsaw, and he would wait till it was right there at your arm, and then he would lean in and say something really profound that would make you be like, oh, that was all a bad idea. And so like just those little moments, those little quips and things are important. I picture him kind of supervising more than anything. Shit, I lost my train of thought about what my next question was, so I apologize. But so as he's kind of gone through this situation, is there one of his companions that he trusts more than another?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Bartleby sort of has like a tenuous trust for everybody, but I think that Bartleby really has started to trust Corbin.
Really? Corbin?
Yeah.
He's super short. You realize that?
He's tiny.
Yeah.
He's tiny, but he's not like just like throwing lanterns at people, and like he's not. He seems to like just want to make it through as well. So they have that in common. I
got a comment. So this is this came up in John's thing too. Is the combat with the puslings, right? Where he's charging in Corbin shovel. What I love about Oswald is the fact that everybody else is going to charge in and pick up a shovel or a turd or whatever they can find to hurt the bad guy. He's always going to be the one that does that slightly weird thing that may work out. And that the fire probably scared some little puslings or whatever. It's pretty cool. But that's interesting. So you probably are like, wow, this little guy is like a slugger.
Like he sees like there's a kindred spirit thing there, where they're both people who are not fit for what they've been thrust into. Yeah, that now have to like make their way through.
Oh, that's so good. And it's funny because if you think of it from a novel perspective, there's that kind of path where they're all separate, and then at some point there's this weird conversation between him where he's like, Nana would have liked you, little fella, or something, pats him on the head and moves on. So tell me a little more about how you've developed Bartleby. So you mentioned earlier he's gone to guard. I know that you kind of were struggling with the whole setup of the system, but like, tell me about your choice there.
Well, I'm still struggling with the setup of the system, but
I didn't write
within
it.
the system.
I didn't write it.
I know.
They're British,
but
they wrote it.
I kind of sorry.
The British wrote it, all of them.
Yeah, I know.
That's true. That's true. It's fine. I like it, but
I don't know.
Go on. Keep going.
Anyways.
I struggle with it too so bad, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
Keep going. So you've developed him how?
Yeah, I mean, I started looking at the different classes in the book and just trying to figure like what would be a good progression step for Bartleby to go from somebody who's like purely like I support civilization by carrying things around to I'm an active participant in deciding the fate of the group. And I struggled between guard and protagonist.
Oh,
because the protagonist is sort of like a thug, right? And I could see Bartleby becoming a thug.
He's just starting some shit,
really
right?
Like there wasn't like the right interaction with Unter to make that possible, because Bartleby will be Unter's protagonist, right? And I didn't
She'd
really
be like, give him a turkey right now.
exactly, and that just didn't really grow. So I decided to go with Guard. Because Guard is useful from like a role-playing perspective. It's useful for keeping the rest of the team safe, and it's also good for the caravan and good for Unter as well. So
yeah, for sure. And I think the combat situation. So we'll go back to you being a dockhand. He's probably not a stranger to violence at some level, but obviously the situation, like, what has that been like for him? Has it been over the top and crazy? Like what?
I mean, the violence itself, people fighting each other, that sort of thing, that's, that happens on the docks. Like, there's different gangs that have different specialties, and if you step on each other's toes, it's like the Union.
Yeah.
Right? Like, somebody's going to get beaten up.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to go to the cops. So that part is fairly normal. And, like, when I built Bartleby up, I built him up with some, like, brawling and some regular, like, basic combat skills so that he would have some of that, having been around the docks for a while. But this, like, fighting supernatural things is just next level for him. And he's willing to fight and he's willing to risk his life, but he's not willing to, like, charge into combat every time.
Yeah, well, because you don't know. And so probably, and what I love, and it's one of the reasons that I titled that episode, Nana's Always Right, is it struck me that, wow, like, what if any one of us had an experience that suddenly validated all the superstitions that we'd heard before, like literally concretely validated that. So what's that been like for him? Because you got weird things and undead and like spitting pus everywhere and mushrooms that are barfing pus at your little buddy who he's probably gonna die because he failed the roll. Not my fault. What's that like? Is he facing like this weird realization? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's so. I don't really know a ton about the Warhammer universe, right? So I'm sort of I know like 40K more than Warhammer Fantasy, so I'm like starting to like pick it up and put it together for him, and I'm doing that sort of through like the Nana's Wives' Tales sort of approach. Like, as I learn new things about the game, it's like, oh, I remember, Nana said that way back when. And that's
I love that. I love that so much, though. So few players, like a lot of players and players out there, if you watch this or GMs, encourage your players not to be this person. But like, have a reason, something. That was so profound for me when you're like, Nana's always right. I swear I laugh every time I hear that. But like, just the idea that I've made players where I'm like, or characters where I know everything about the entomology of orcs. I know everything about this and the biology. It's not that way, and so you're pulling that off. You've been on a dock most of your life, and you've heard stories from your grandma. Tell me about Nana. Tell me about Nana, right? This is random, but tell me about her. Was she grizzled? Did she chew tobacco?
I don't think that she chewed tobacco. I think that she was much more like probably maybe secretly a witch, something similar. Maybe has that some sort of tie to the supernatural that she maybe didn't tell everybody about, but that she, instilled in her grandchildren through passing on these legends and this lore. I definitely don't think that Bartleby has the capacity within him to become some sort of magic user, but to have it in the family would be good.
That would be pretty awesome, though, to have it grizzled, that'd be so good. Just the lore of fire, just flinging fire at everything that moves. That would be awesome. What does Bartleby think about Unter and the situation? So if you were to hit pause in the situation, I mean, you just survived the encounter with the puslings. God only knows what's on the other side of that. What's going on with Unter? What do you think?
So, I mean, I definitely think that the dome has something to do with Unter and why Unter needed to make haste to get to Ubersreich?
Yes.
Is that the name of the city?
Yep,
yeah, Ubersreich. So, but I can't, like, it's sort of like being a cop. Like, there's what you know and what you can prove. So Bartleby is sort of thinking about it and trying to figure out, like, what is it about Unter that's put them all in this situation? And now that the Fae are involved, like, Bartleby's going a little conspiracy theorist with it. Like, he's got a little tinfoil hat and everything, and he's like, Unter's got something that belongs to the Fae. He's gotta. Maybe he ate one of them. I don't know. Maybe he likes both kinds of brownies.
That's so good. And likely. I mean, honestly, if they run out of turkeys, he's going to start just chewing down the forest. If you wait long enough, he'll eat his way through the dome.
There you go.
Tell me about your companions. What do you think about Geschwind?
So we haven't really had, because we've just been sort of thrown into this situation together. We haven't really had like nights around the campfire to really get to know each other, outside of the bonds that we started with. So Bartleby's a little guarded towards these guys. Like he thinks that they're good. You know, he thinks that they're doing a good job with what the tasks that they've been set on, but he's not. He's sort of like slow to open up to them or slow to trust them, and that's one of the reasons why he trusts Corbin, because they just sort of click.
Yeah. I love that. And what about so you mentioned Oswald. So what about Oswald? So Oswald, what I love about him is so if you look at where he is right now, and I love the way Rivers is approaching this, is like, he's so fucked. He's convinced he's dying. And so he's fatalistic, and he's like, it's what is Bartleby's sense of Oswald? Is he mournful? Is he just like, yeah, that guy's weird? Like, what's his thing?
No, I think Bartleby, it's weird because Bartleby and Oswald have that bond.
Yeah.
You know, the engineering bond from back when we started. So Bartleby is seeing like Oswald go down this road where, you know, it's obvious that this is weighing heavily on him and it's taking a toll on his mind. And Bartleby's looking for opportunities to like help bring him back, or help instate some hope in him, instill some hope in him. And, you know, Bartleby's a man of few words, but I know I'm going to find it eventually, and when I do, it's going to be awesome.
When you do, you're going to shut down all of Twitch. You're going to say it, and Twitch's servers are just going to be like, you know, and I love that because so what I love the most is the couple of quotes from the last session about how he's just like, you know what, you know, maybe it was the one before that with the wagon, where he's just like, I don't care, and he's touching these tainted corpses or whatever. He just doesn't care because he wants to just get through it. And at some level, and I'm anxious, I talked to Rivers this weekend, but I'm anxious to see if that's because he's trying to like get you guys through it and sacrifice himself, which is pretty noble.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Which is awesome. Fun fact,
For sure.
We are mispronouncing Geschwind. I'm going to say it on the stream again. We got a comment on YouTube, and it's like, hey guys, I love your stream. And I was telling John, so we've gotten feedback from just literally all over the world. I love it. Poland, we've shipped merch to Poland, Germany, Ireland, Scotland.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. And they love your characters, which is cool. I set up a story, put you guys in this situation, stole some shit from Stephen King, and off you guys go. But the one comment came in, and it's like, listen, I love you guys, but you pronounced Geschwind wrong. And so, and I'm like, shit. So I go look it up, and I'm hitting play, and it's like Geschwind. And I'm like, yeah, I could say it, Geschwind. I'm like, well, I'm saying the W, not in Geschwind. I'm like hitting it over and over again, but no matter what, I can't get it right. I'm convinced it's because I'm from Florida. So you will save us all. So if you look at, let's assume that you survive. Let's make that up. Let's pretend.
Big assumption.
Let's pretend. What else is going to be funny is when you're the only one that survives. Let's assume you do. Are you scarred? Are you fucked forever? Like, what does that look like? You get to Uber's Reich? Are you just like, meh, and you're back to normal? Like, what is that like?
So I'm actually not sure how that's going to go, because it's going to depend on, you know, provided I survive, which I'm not really thinking that far. I'm like way further down on the hierarchy of needs. Then like, what am I going to do when I get to the next town? But I think that once we get there, I think that there's going to be, you know, it's going to be like the first step of Bartleby into a larger world. You know, like he started off just on the docks. He's had this experience where he's, you know, seen some crazy shit, and now he's going to a city where, you know, where there are adventures, where there are, you know, temples and priests, and like starting to absorb more of that. Like, you know, I have a destiny that isn't picking things up and putting them down.
Yeah.
Part of the world.
That's really cool. So that's when you think about that, that's kind of like, so normally he would wake up in the morning, he would kiss his wife or whatever was going on there, he would head out to the docks and he'd go and labor. And now he's got this whole context that those people wouldn't even understand. So if I were like, say, Job, I'm Bartleby's old drinking buddy Job, how different would Bartleby be to me when you return? Would it be like night and day?
It would have to be night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that have happened now to Bartleby have just like set him on a different path completely.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. All right, let's beat the system to death. What's wrong with the system? No, don't say all of it, because we're going to run out of time.
No, so I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think that they're, being somebody who DMs myself and somebody who develops a system myself, like
if you want to stream on the Myth Brigade, you could stream on the Myth Brigade. I wouldn't charge you a penny. I mean, you could. I'll even play. I'll play a mute, armless, legless bard.
Nice. Fine. That's good. Okay. So I think that there's some complication for complication's sake in the system. There are some things that it's like not really intuitive how they work, and the layout of the book makes it less intuitive. Like there's no just here's how to advance your character in a way that's like simple. It's like they go off on these tangents about it, and I mean, I understand that when you're creating a game system, you're like, oh, and this thing is really cool, let's talk about this, but they really just need like some dry run tutorials type stuff to go through. What's the name of the game? Ironsworn has a really good tutorial that I think if the guys from Cubicle 7 gave it a read, they would probably be able to find.
Just sort of, so they sort of, the rules are where they are, but it abstracts it. Call of Cthulhu does a great job on character creation. So that's our next, spoiler alert, that's our next rules bites, because we've got a Call of Cthulhu thing going on. And I would love to have anyone like, out in California that wants to join. But it's laid out really well, because it's like, here's all the well-written instructional. And then here's 3 pages with some pointies and whatnot for Americans to figure it all out. Like it's really easy and simple kind of gruck. But you're right. I think at the end of the day, some of these systems in particular are the combat and the advantages where we struggle. And we were getting better, and thankfully, honestly, through the criticism on the YouTube, people being like, "That's wrong. You're a doofus," and I'm like, "Oh shit, let me go read that again." I am a doofus, but it is a little bit unwieldy. But what I like is the level of visceral. Once you get it right and you get the rhythm, Yeah.
I think that the turn by turn, the tactical game, is actually pretty cool. Like I like the advantage system. I like, overwhelming. I think that there's things there that aren't in 5th edition D&D that are useful. Like flanking becomes an important thing, and there's more like tactical meat to it. Where I feel like the system lets me down, at least, is that it always feels like whatever I'm choosing to put my advances towards is the wrong thing. Like it's not super clear. Like, I started off with basic melee, right? The first weapons that we got, the only weapons that we got for like the first 3 months of the campaign were fencing weapons.
This is my fault now.
Right?
You're right.
So,
no,
but that's not your fault.
I got
it's
it.
like, it's like, whereas in D&D, if you have proficiency with martial weapons, you find a longsword, great. You find a rapier, great. It doesn't matter because you're proficient.
Yes.
And it's like too granular. It's like,
well, what's funny though, right? So if you grabbed one of those rapiers, you could still fight with it. What you don't get, and you don't get penalized like you would if you're not proficient in like D&D. What you get instead is you just don't benefit from the gifts of the weapon. So rapiers have like an impale and they're fast. Instead, it just becomes like a really sharp thing that you can swing back and forth. So you can use it with basic melee. And I do like that. What it's helpful is if everyone's read the rules, including me. So like I'm working on the rules bites for the weapons and armor, which is why I even remember that. And it's like, based on D&D, you're right. It's like, oh God, this is so much work right now. I think I want to hit end stream and just forget. But no,
it's a steeper learning curve, I think.
Yeah. I like, what I will say though, 2nd edition, for those of you who have said it, they're right. 2nd edition is really, really nice. It has a lot of the sort of visceral, gnarly bits to this system, but it's just as quick and easy to resolve as D&D. Probably 2nd edition, I would say, is a similar kind of thing, which, because I'm an old dude. All right, enough of that. But the other thing is, what's going on with your game?
With my game system?
Yes, and how can everyone download it for, say, like $1,000 a copy?
I'm on hiatus right now for working on it. I have the classes built. I have the combat system like probably 75-80% built. I started running a new D&D campaign, and that's really become my passion for now.
Nice.
But I will return to it. I have like a whole thing set up on Google Sites with all the classes and everything else, and it's just not quite ready for prime time and not copyrighted yet. So. Well,
fair enough. Don't say too much, but I'm saying if you guys want to pre-order for like $3,500 a copy, we'll do that right now. Just send it to. We'll get you in the comments below. We'll have Jim's PayPal. Awesome.
Yeah, that'll work.
So the I guess the last question I'll throw out there is, so from Bartleby's perspective, what comes next? What's the next? So just to recalibrate, right? We just finished this battle with the Pusslings. There's this stump of a woman leaning. She's been fed on by these chaos creatures, and you're heading toward obviously the place that they came from. It seems. What comes next? What's in Bartleby's head?
Bartleby doesn't really know what to expect past the threshold of the catacombs. And just making it to there and through there and getting the party through there is what's next for him. That's like his sole focus.
What if you step on the other side of the catacombs and it's kind of like Fresh Market if they had a fresh supply of toilet paper right now? What would that be like?
I don't know. I mean, we'd have to see, like, if we went in there and it was like not what we were expecting, which is a horrible, Gygaxian death trap dungeon.
Oh no, it's just gonna be bad. Yeah,
I know. I know. I'm not making it out there with 4 limbs. I know that.
Or the diameter of BH that you would expect either. It's totally true.
Nice.
Yes, Jim. Thank you so much, man, for being part of this. There's a package on its way to you, by the way. It should be there in at least, I don't know, 7 to 10 months when the Postal Service makes its way over there. But I look forward. We're April 23rd. Is that right? April?
Yeah, I believe so. 2 weeks.
Yeah. So this is where you lose one of your limbs, and there's a widening, and then we'll go from there. But no, really, I enjoy playing with you so much, man, and I hope you're up for more, because we have other campaigns and other systems that we want to do, and it's all about the drama. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, say it, the quote, Nana's what? What is she?
It is always right.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm gonna
It's true.
Watch what I can do, though.